All right, guys, we're back. All right, now, today what we're going to do is we're going to still focus on 19th century Europe, but now we're going to kind of, to a lesser extent, talk about the Austrian Habsburg monarchy. We're going to talk about the Italians, and then probably we're going to focus a lot more on Germany, which is going to be on the next video, okay? So, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it, and let's start talking about the Habsburg monarchy in Austria. Because remember, there was, way back when, there was a Habsburg monarchy in Spain. Same family, different branches, okay? So, with the Habsburg monarchy, keep in mind that Austria in the early 19th century, it was a European player. It was a strong monarchy, all right? Remember, after the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, it's Metternich is the one that's really calling all the shots, and he's the leader of Austria. He's the foreign minister, okay? So Austria is a strong monarchy. However, we're going to see by the mid-19th century, and definitely as we're getting more closer to World War I, there are fundamental problems in Austria, okay? So let's talk about the first thing, okay? We're going to see that in 1848, when there was uprisings in Paris, when there were those uprisings in France, that is going to filter into Austria, okay? The things that people want in France are going to be the same things they're going to want in Austria. Now, to the most part, they're going to get a lot of stuff in France, maybe not so much in Austria, okay? I would say that the biggest outcome in 1848 for Austria, they're not going to get all this reform, but the big thing they're going to get is new leadership, okay? Metternich is going to be out in 1848, and he'll be replaced, but the guy who is really going to replace him is going to be the new emperor, Franz Joseph II. Now, you got to understand, Franz Joseph is going to be important because he's going to be the leader of Austria that makes it all the way to World War I. So he's going to rule for a long time, okay? Now, that being said, with the Austrian Empire, remember, it's not just a bunch of Austrians. The Austrian Empire is a multi-ethnic empire. It is a multi-ethnic state. Okay, and not all of these people agree with Germanic Austrians. Not all these people agree with, Metternich or even Franz Joseph. Okay, so, whether it's the Magyars, who are the Hungarians, they kind of want their own thing. People in the Baltic provinces, in the Balkan provinces, totally different area. In the Balkan provinces, they want their own thing, the Slavic people. Even in the Italian kingdoms, which are controlled mostly by the Austrians, they want their own thing. So really, there's all these different ethnic groups tearing apart the Austrian Empire, and it's really going to be the responsibility of Franz Joseph to keep it together, okay? Now, we're going to see, like with the Austrians, probably their biggest concern is going to be the Magyars, is going to be the Hungarians, okay? We're going to see that the Hungarian Assembly, they're going to vote for their own constitution. They're trying to break away from a certain extent. Now, they're not going to get it in 1848, but they create a new constitution that says, hey, we want religious freedom. We want equality under the law, okay? We want to end feudal privilege. Stuff that had been going on in Western Europe for the last 50 years, they're starting to filter into Central Europe. Now, in 1848, they're not going to get this, but it's that good first step. Now, the way Franz Joseph, basically combats all these different ethnicities is that he secures power amongst the Germanic Austrians. The people you think of as like, yeah, I'm Austrian, all right, okay? He's cultivating those people. He's like, all right, we got to stick together because there's all these other people in the Austrian Empire that are not quite like us that are trying to pull us apart. So we really need to consolidate power here. And that's what he does. And that'll band-aid things for at least a couple years, okay? So that being said, let's kind of get to the unraveling. Even with the core support of the Germanic Austrians, we're going to see that the Austrian Empire is going to face a lot of problems. And it's from all these different ethnicities. Like Franz Joseph still cannot get all these people on the same page. Okay? In 1859, the Italian kingdoms win their independence from Austria. Okay? Austria was controlling a lot of these kingdoms either directly or indirectly. Well, now they're out. Okay? The Austrians are out. Okay? And the Italian kingdoms get their own kingdom, essentially. Okay? In 1866, we're going to see that Austria loses the Austro-Prussian War against Prussia. They take a beating. Now, I've told you this quite a bit. When there's internal problems or even external problems, they feed off of each other. When there's external problems, it's going to bring internal problems. When there's internal problems, it's going to bring external problems. Okay? Well, we see that the Austrians just lost a war to the Prussians. They just lost the Italian kingdoms. Well, the Magyars see this as an opportunity to internally break away. Now, this is actually going to be very, very important. 1 year after they lose the Austro-Prussian War, we're going to see that the Hungarians, they kind of break away, all right? They're going to create what's called the dual monarchy, okay? So you'll see like a lot of times when, you read about World War I, one of the central powers is Austria-Hungary. It's not Austria, it's Austria-Hungary. Because in 1867, the Magyars, the ethnic Magyars, who are the Hungarians, they vote to kind of create their own separate group. And Austria is not strong enough to keep them in line. So we're going to see that you create the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, okay? And really the only thing that links these two entities is that Franz Joseph is the emperor of both Austria and Hungary, okay? All right, now, each state, Austria-Hungary, had its own constitution. I would say that foreign policy by the Austrians, they're controlling a lot of the Hungarian foreign policy, but you have two different entities now, okay? So that's a pretty big change, okay? Now, of course, all the other ethnic groups, especially the ethnic groups in the Balkans, they're not going to get their little slice of the pie. They're going to break away eventually, but they're wanting to break away, but Austria-Hungary is not going to let that happen. And of course, later on, as we're going to see, this is one of the causes for World War I, okay? All right, let's go to the next step. Let's go to the unification of Italy, okay? Now, I have told you all, really since, August, well, we really can't call it Italy because it's not united. You can call it the Italian kingdoms, okay? You can call it the Italian peninsula, but there is no political unit of Italy. I mean, Italy hasn't been unified, the peninsula, arguably since Rome, okay? It has always been Italian kingdoms, okay? So, first thing, in the 19th century, Italians are divided politically, okay? They're in a lot of different political systems and a lot of different kingdoms and a lot of different states on the Italian peninsula, okay? For the most part, you have some kingdoms that are autonomous, that run their own show, like the Papal States. But for the most part, these other kingdoms, they're indirectly controlled by a stronger European power, whether it is France, mainly Austria, and look, even to a small extent, Spain's got some influence, all right? So these small Italian kingdoms always have kind of like a bigger brother that is controlling them, okay? Also, they're divided culturally, they're divided economically, okay? Culturally, they have different dialects, they speak different versions of Italian. Economically, typically the North was a lot more industrialized than the South, which was much more agrarian. To be honest, it was a lot more poor, okay? So don't think that all these Italians are the same, because they're not, okay? Really what they're looking for is they're looking for some guy to come in and unite them. Now, look, FYI, let me kind of give you a precursor alert. There's a lot more to this story, but for the case of WAP, you can get away with just knowing probably Garibaldi, okay? So the guy we're looking for is Giuseppe Garibaldi, okay? And he wanted what was called a risorgimento, okay? And I have the word down here. Really what that is a reorganization, okay? Now, look, a lot of historians will say, okay, you're only trading one corrupt practice for another, but regardless, he wanted a reorganization of Italian politics, okay? Now, we're going to see that in 1848, he's going to participate in a war, like Garibaldi, against other Europeans, all right? Like Garibaldi has street cred, okay? People will follow him, okay? Now, look, in 1848, he doesn't get the job done. You know, the Kingdom of Piedmont, which I'm not going to really go into, they don't get the job done initially. But of course, every time you fail, you get closer to succeeding. So we're going to see that Garibaldi in 1860, he's going to start a war in the South, and he's going to move north, okay? So he's going to start a war of independence in the Kingdom of Sicily, and then he's going to start moving north. Now look, what this WAP book doesn't really tell you is that there's a guy named Camillo di Cavour in the north. He's starting independence movements and moving south. And eventually, very much like Jose de San Martin and Simon Bolivar, they will meet and one guy's going to win out, okay? All right, so with that being said, he will start in the south and he will slowly move his way up, okay? Now, Garibaldi's not going to get everything he wants. Garibaldi was a Republican. He wanted a republic. However, most of the northern part of the Italian kingdom, they did not want this. They were liberals. Like, they wanted more people voting, just not everybody, okay? So we're going to see that with the help of the Prussians indirectly, eventually the Austrians will get kicked out of the Italian kingdoms. Eventually the French will get kicked out of the Italian kingdoms. And really that gives the opportunity for the Italians to overtake the entire peninsula and unite it under one government, okay? So in 1870, we're going to have the unification of Italy, okay? All right? Now look, it's going to be essentially a constitutional monarchy, all right? But we will have the unification of Italy, which is the first time in like 1,400 years this has happened. So now we have an Italy, okay? All right, I'm going to stop it here, and then we'll go to the next video where we talk about German unification.